Hello, today is November 15th, 2020. My name is Andrew Garza. I'm interviewing Amanda Garza for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Miss Amanda Garza, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-exclusive rights to the interview and any other materials you donate to Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record you consenting to make sure you agree with the interview procedures before we continue. So I'll ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. Starting off with number 1. Do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
I agree.
Okay. 2, do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest and copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
I agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voces of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
I agree.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends it to UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we would have stripped out any contact information for yourself or family members so that will not be part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in the public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
I agree.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
I agree.
Thank you for your consent. Your experiences and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you say in interview questions I will now ask. Starting with, okay. So, as I said, I'm the interviewer. My name is Andrew Garza. And just as an introduction, you can introduce yourself.
My name is Amanda Garza, and I'm a student at UTRGV.
Okay. This is a Voces project. This is my mini project for this class, Mexican American Literature, Professor Noreen Rivera. And let's get started. A little icebreaker. How is your day going today?
It's going. Not much. Pretty uneventful.
Okay, not bad. Okay, let's dive into the first question. Okay, so the first question I want to ask you When did you first hear about COVID-19? How did you learn about it? Was it from TV, other people, friends, family, social media?
I learned about COVID-19 through social media um, in January of 2020. I read about it in an article posted, I believe, by Yahoo. It was from a news outlet that I read an article on.
Okay. Was it through Twitter? Was it a post, an article posted by somebody on Twitter?
It was an article post on Facebook.
Facebook. Okay. Was it from a friend or a family member who was a little bit scared or skeptical on the whole situation that was happening around the world with COVID?
No, it was straight from the news article.
Okay. So somebody had just pressed share or maybe quoted it. Or,
No, I followed the Yahoo News.
okay. Okay, that's interesting. That's a lot. That's how a lot of people found out about COVID too, from social media, whether it had been from a follower or somebody people followed from another part of the world, like Europe or Asia, where it was first uh, noticed or first brought up. Okay, second question. What was your first reaction to the information about COVID-19 from that article that you read?
I was immediately concerned.
Concerned. Okay. At what point did you realize this pandemic was a serious life-altering event?
As soon as they said that, as soon as I read the article in January where it said that they did not have any type of cure or symptom reliever.
And that it was so easy to spread through the air.
That they had not been able to figure out how it was spread yet.
Yeah. Okay, fourth question. Over the last few months, what news media, social media, or other sources do you rely on to keep you informed about the coronavirus?
Just the news or social media, both of them?
Or whichever, like, which sources do you go to first and that you could trust?
I go to the Hidalgo County website. I also go to pretty much all of the Hidalgo County profiles, social media profiles. So throughout Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, I follow them through all of that. And they normally post pretty much daily, unless it's a weekend, the amount of cases and the precautions or steps that they're taking within the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, that's a great way to receive information from like local news stations and local authorities. Okay, fifth question. Can you share with me what you understand about COVID as an infectious disease? Likewise, can you share with me what you don't understand about this new coronavirus?
I understand that it was an airborne illness, of an airborne virus that was I believe it was contracted. It first was contracted in Wuhan, China, and it made its way internationally through international flights. And that it's airborne. It travels through um, molecules that leave our respiratory system and travel into others as well. And I also know that it can exist on specific surfaces for an extended amount of time, as well as there is no vaccination for it. There are several other coronavirus, I guess, different types of the coronavirus, but this one that we currently have right now that we can't get a handle on is one that we haven't seen before. I don't understand I guess, how it happened, how it was first contracted, how it was first uh, introduced into the community, into the human race. Um, but that's pretty much about it.
So it could have been like a freak thing that was originally just in other species that somehow evolved or developed into coming in and messing with our
I
species.
I do believe it is one of the coronavirus, um, a type of coronavirus that has developed and evolved into what it is now.
That's why it's been so strong, because we never seen it when we're first. This is our first experience with it. Okay. Would you take the first COVID vaccine available on the market? Why or why not?
Like available to the public or available for trial or
Like, if it was, if the government and like the medical side said, here, there's a vaccine available, not necessarily for trial, but there's a vaccine available, would you go for it? Why or why not?
it would depend on how rigorous um, the tests and the test subjects have come back and how rigorous they tested it against the virus. Um, I know that we won't be able to know the side effects or possible prolonged contact with it, what it's going to look like in our bodies after a couple of years, because this is something that we just had to come up with very quickly. But I guess it would just have to, I would have to myself want to look over the requirements, that the steps that the tests had to undergo in order for the vaccine to reach the public.
Yeah, because that would be a very short time to make a vaccine. And something like that probably, I'm not an expert, but probably requires more than a year or two.
Yes, and if it is effective, how effective, and have we ever had anything, any type of vaccination, and have we ever had um, any type of course of action, or I guess it would be like a material or substance that's been in our body, if we've ever had anything like that before, and if I could see like maybe compare it to the vaccination that they're offering now.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Do your family or does your family hold the same beliefs as you about COVID-19, or are there some members who take it more seriously or lightly?
Um, I have a family that consists of 4 people. 2 of us, I believe, take it very seriously, and the other 2 members of my family take it more lightly. Um, mm, that's pretty much it.
What about not just nuclear family, but like the rest of your family?
Immediate family or non-immediate?
Yeah, non-immediate, like non-nuclear, like
Oh,
not
okay.
the people you live with, but
I guess I do have part of my family on my maternal side that there are individuals that do not take it seriously. I do know that for a fact. They have contracted the virus because of their own, I guess, negligence. My other side, my paternal side of the family is more, I believe, cautious about it, mainly because they are primarily within the medical field.
who do you know personally that has been affected health-wise by the virus?
Personally, my mother's uncle, my great uncle, just recently passed away from complications of the after effects of COVID. So he did survive the virus within the 2 weeks. He no longer had the virus. active within his system, but within the weeks afterwards, he fell incredibly ill towards double pneumonia. And he ended up contracting double pneumonia and an upper respiratory infection that he just wasn't strong enough to be able to fight off after, especially after fighting COVID for the 2 weeks. So he did end up succumbing to not the virus, but the effects that it left on his body.
What was his age, or was he?
He, I believe, was in his 70s.
So, like all the other outlets have said, and how the local authorities and government has said, it's a particularly deadly virus to the older population.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is sad to get affected by it. Question 9 kind of ties in with number 8. Do you know anyone who has passed away due to coronavirus or complications due to coronavirus? You said
yes.
Your great deal. Yes. Okay, next question. How is the transition? Well, these next couple questions are going to get a little more personal because these are the questions that were kind of based around you and what I wanted the focus to be, because you are a student on the brink of graduating, and pretty much you're going through a first for a lot of people experiencing the same thing as you are by being a student during this time, during this pandemic, and not just being a student, but graduating and finishing your higher education, your bachelor's, and being a senior during this time, during this hard pandemic, during this hard quarantine that kind of flipped your schooling around, something that not a lot of people were prepared for, or no one was prepared for. So I wanted to focus with these questions specifically for you. How was the transition to online classes for you? Easy or very difficult?
It was extremely difficult. I do have a learning disability that I hadn't needed to have any assistance with. I didn't need any help within the 4 years that I was in college, or within the past 3 years. But it wasn't until I had to switch completely online to complete distance learning that I realized that my learning style was not compatible with distance learning. So it was extremely difficult, especially with the fact that the courses that I was taking are upper level courses, and the majority of my school career was done in person. I had, if anything, I would only have zero to none, or 1 to 0 classes online, because I just preferred learning in person, and I was able to absorb information better in person. So it was extremely difficult. It was really hard to get.
There's nothing that can replace actual in-person learning and teaching. No screen, no Zoom meeting. I agree. Can't fill that void. Okay. Did your professors lessen the load of work given due to the circumstances that the RGV was facing? If yes, how? Now, you could answer this question pertaining to last semester, which was like right in the middle, spring break, how we transitioned to online classes like that. And you could also answer for this semester too, because I know professors kind of didn't have the same mentality coming into this semester as they did last semester, where like they had to like completely flip the script for last semester, and for this semester they had a little bit more time because everybody knew, hey, this isn't going to go away in a couple months. So uh, what was that like for you?
Um, Last semester, I most of my professors did in fact take the COVID-19 quarantine serious. Um, they lessened the workload, or if not lessened, they added more time to be able to do assignments. They were very flexible. They became flexible with it. I did, however, have one professor that refused to budge on anything that he wanted us to do, which was highly discouraging because our class was completely online, in person, and we had specific presentations that we had to do. There were specific in-course or in-classroom activities that he still expected us to try and figure out on our own. He expected us to, we were required to have a camera in order to be able to, we were required to have software and a camera that we didn't have access to before the pandemic, a lot of us, and he didn't make any exceptions to that. He was, I personally believe that he probably didn't think the pandemic was going to last as long as it did, because I felt that he thought it was just something we would get back to normal from, that it would only last like a week. We'd be back the week after spring break, but we never did, unfortunately. So that was actually the point in time where I felt like I needed um, my accessibility services to be provided to me. So within this semester, though, I do feel like the workload is a lot less stressful, even though I am in, it's my last semester in college, my last semester for my bachelor's degree. It doesn't feel as overloaded as I thought it was going to be, and it definitely feels a lot less stressful than it was last semester. So I think that a lot of professors did take that into account.
I like your point of view. From my experience and from what I've seen on social media too, a lot of people had it flipped. How this semester professors kind of like up the workload, because since it's online, a lot of people think you have more time. One, it's not the case for everybody, because now people need to go to their jobs if their jobs are still open, and they have other responsibilities now that they're not in school. So yeah, professors have really been like 50-50 on how they kind of respond to this and how they teach.
Sorry, excuse me. Okay. I honestly believe that the reason why my workload doesn't feel as hard is because they are last semester senior level courses. So I believe that if the
Still hard.
professors um they already knew, I guess, that this was it for us. Um they knew that this was going to be, we were going to be done after this semester. I feel like maybe the underclassmen courses, maybe like the freshman and the sophomore uh, professors and courses might have upped their load and upped their expectations because of the fact that this was going to be a new normal for something. It was something that they were probably going to have to get used to, as opposed to they've only been having courses at the school for like a year and a half or two, as opposed to trying to get uh, an entire class, the class of 2020, who has been going to college for 4 years, um, trying to switch them over to that. I guess they saw it as it was going to be a little bit harder to try to unravel their set learning styles. So I feel like that might have played a bit into it.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Next question. Now this is going to pertain to your job and how the pandemic and the quarantine affected you outside of school a little bit. Were you working, and did your employer keep you on board throughout the quarantine?
So before the quarantine was enacted, I was employed with two different organizations or two different companies. I was part-time with both of them, but one I was a regular sales associate, and the second one I was a part of the management team. I was furloughed from both of my jobs during the quarantine that was enacted on our county. And afterwards, I was terminated by my management level position because I was unable to meet the required hours I was unable to work the required hours I was needed because I live in a immunocompromised household. So I lost a job from COVID.
Tying in with your job too, what cautions did your employer, oh no, not the one that you got terminated from, take? What cautions did your employer take due to this pandemic? Were you impressed or upset over how your employer dealt with the pandemic?
Both employers or my current employer?
You could talk about both.
Okay. The one that I was terminated from, the reason why I was terminated, the reason why I did not work the required hours within that store was because they did not take the pandemic seriously. Our PPE was not sent in as often as it should have been. Also, the percentage of amount of customers, the ratio of customers within the store was not handled very well. It was pretty
I said on the, sorry to interrupt, but on the pre-interview form, I put that you worked at the mall. So you could talk about your experience at the mall too. I know that's a huge bustling place, especially during the pandemic, so it ties in. So you could talk about your experience with that too.
Yeah, so when it happened, it was during spring break. And of course, what was actually really, it wasn't at the one that I was terminated from, but from my first, my non-management position level job that I was at, I had actually met somebody, or we normally have conversations with our customers to try to get a better understanding of what they're looking for and what they're like and what they would like to shop for. And in one of the instances, I did speak to a customer who was from San Antonio. And within that week, literally like probably a couple days before I had spoken with them, they had actually come out that San Antonio had just had tested for their first case, and they mishandled the case, and the person was let go before they were non-infectious. So there was somebody literally coming down to the valley that came down to the valley because of the virus that they were already pretty much spreading. And this is before our PPE had gotten into play. But the
This is at the
management,
mall too.
yes, this is at the mall, at a retail store in the mall. Both of my retail positions were within the mall. The one that I did get terminated from, we did not have PPE until probably 2 weeks after the state reopened, our county reopened. Like I said, the amount of people within the store per square foot of the store was not accounted for correctly, I don't believe. There was no way that the amount of people that were allowed in the store were able to correctly distance themselves for 6 feet apart within
thousands and thousands of people going into the mall every day.
Yes. So we would have to go ahead and let people in, let a certain amount of people in, make the others wait. And they're constantly going in and out and in and out. For my current employer, the one that I was not terminated for, I am very impressed with the way that they handled the pandemic and the importance that they placed their employee safety on. So the store itself did not open when the mall reopened, when the state reopened. The store stayed closed, I believe, until the county had lifted their quarantine. So county officials had enacted a not a required by law quarantine, but it was an effective one that you wouldn't be fined. It wasn't required by law, but it was still preferred that you did it. And our company took that into effect and did not open us up until until our county said that it was safe for us to do so. So I was very impressed. They did have PPE right away for us. They had a lot of extra alternatives for us, and they enacted very good precautions against the COVID virus. But because I didn't feel as safe in my previous employer, I had spoken with my doctor, my physician, my general physician about it and the immunocompromised household that I live in. And that's when my doctor did say that it would be best if I limited my contact with that store. And I got terminated.
Okay, so good and bad.
Yeah.
Next question kind of ties in with job too. Were you financially impacted by the pandemic?
Yes.
That is a personal question. And like I said on the preamble, you choose to answer questions or you could choose not to answer the question.
I was affected by the pandemic. I worked around, I want to say at least 30 hours in one position, and then the other one I had at least 15. And because I didn't have my job, my job that I had the most hours in, within the allotted time that unemployment benefits wanted it to be in. I know there's certain quarters that they go by, and that job I didn't have for that specific quarter that they wanted, or they were calculating unemployment from. So I ended up only receiving my unemployment from just one job that I was only getting 15 hours from, which was not my main source of income. But yes.
Okay. Next question, number 15. What was your household like during the pandemic? Cases of cabin fever or relaxed?
I think for the beginning of the pandemic, we were okay. Most of us, with the exception of one of my family members, were pretty active outside of our household. We were home probably 2 nights out of the week, and the rest of us, my mother was always home pretty much all the time, but the rest of us were always out. So when the quarantine came, we were pretty, I guess we could say, frustrated with each other because we weren't around each other as often as we were before. So we did have a pretty large case of cabin fever, but we kind of got used to it. We learned that it was our new norm, and I think it's pretty relaxed now.
Number 16, going back to school a little bit. As a senior at UTRGV who experienced a nationwide pandemic, you are the future of our country. With these new life experiences, how do you plan to live and teach those around you after experiencing firsthand what COVID-19 did and showed what kind of people we really are?
I think, or I believe actually, that this pandemic, although could have been it couldn't have been prevented, but it could have been, I guess, contained a lot better by our public officials and those that, our world leaders. I do believe that it did show the lack of empathy that exists within this world.
It wasn't talked about before, but you are majoring in business management, correct?
Yes.
So
yes.
you want to be, I'm pretty sure you want to be somewhere on top of maybe a company or a team of people. So
So I would
your
like to,
firsthand experience, yeah, you, if anything similar ever happens again or something different, but somewhere on the same scale or a little smaller scale, I'm pretty sure you would know and you learned like what you would want to put into your job and what you want to do if you're ever at that head top of like a team or a business or a store or wherever kind of way path you want to go into. What would you do?
so my major is business management. I'm not too sure if I'd like to continue to move on to my master's degree, but my goal, my ultimate career goal, is to become uh, someone who creates and helps run and consult nonprofit organizations. Um, so that kind of ties into what's going on right now, and as far as being the future of the population, I feel like this pandemic, like I said, it showed us the lack of empathy and the lack of care that we have for others, and for those who aren't, within our immediate family and our individual selves. Um, a lot of times, the people within this pandemic didn't believe that it was as serious as it was until somebody within their family or somebody that they knew pretty close to them had to suffer the effects of it, and they saw it in person. So I believe that contributed a lot to the negligence of this pandemic. I feel that if we had taken more people and their experiences into account more seriously, we would have been able to understand a lot better that this is we're not going back to normal. And we need to figure out what we can do as fast as we can for those who have not been affected by it. So yeah, I do believe that when if I ever, hopefully, become the person that I want to be and have the influence that I want to have one day, that I will make sure that my employees, like my company that I work for right now, set a really good role model or set a really good standard as to what employees need and how they need to be heard, and they have to be taken care of, because that is your business, and you don't run by yourself. You have to lead somebody.
Yes, that's a good answer. Good answer. Next question. As you know, this pandemic is not over yet. What do you think the government should do to really put a stop to the spread and flatten the curve? And this is, I know with the new changing of the guard, the president, whole election, it just finished. So you could go into that too, how you think the new, how you think the new regime should plan this out, and how you think the new regime, the new president, and the new people who were elected should, what they should do.
So I normally do try to follow the political news and basically pretty much everything that has to do with COVID, because, like I said, I do live in an immunocompromised household. The safety of my family is my priority, actually. So I think that in keeping up with this news, and I was able to see and read about the president-elect Joe Joe Biden's plans. Actually, he's currently forming a COVID task force that hopefully he will be able to put into action when if he does get inaugurated in January. That they are currently in talks of wanting to have another nationwide lockdown, for at least maybe 4 to 6 weeks, to be able to try and get a handle on um, the number of cases that are rising. Currently, I live in, I'm in a region that was and has been an epicenter for the pandemic, for COVID-19 for months, probably since July. Um, Actually, yeah, it has been since July. After the 4th of July, I think that's when things kind of went down. Um,
Texas is the biggest hotspot.
yes, we are the hotspot, and the Rio Grande Valley is currently we're there's a light on us right now. And I do believe that the shutdown, having a quarantine, unfortunately, we have expressed concerns. I guess, elected officials, have tried their best to get a handle on the situation, but it's obviously not something that they're doing very well. Um, I was just speaking to this earlier with my family, saying that I felt that it was really unmeditated, like it was not premeditated to think of when we should have had our quarantine, because we didn't have any cases when our county shut down. But as soon as we opened back up, that's when our cases surged. So I do believe that we need to have some type of required stay-at-home order in place, because there are so many people who are not taking it seriously, and because of that, they're only causing the spread of it. So since other people cannot take other people into mind, we're gonna have to do it for them.
Yeah, something the old, well, still the current president and his regime hasn't done enough of. Do you feel like?
Oh, definitely. I do not agree with any of his precautions or actions that have followed this pandemic. I don't believe that he was prepared. I mean, we weren't prepared, but the actions that he took put us in the situation that we are in right now. And having 2 million cases uh, within around 2 weeks within the country, after it was presented to our country, I feel like that's completely unnecessary and could have been prevented. And I feel like a lot of deaths are because of the actions that he took, and he is responsible for them.
That was my next question, was how this administration handled it and how you thought they handled it. But you answered that a little bit.
Yeah, so I do not agree with our current president. Uh, I guess, his his standards, and his viewpoint, his perspective on the virus. I do not agree with our current governor's perspective on the virus, but I will say that I do stand by the county judge, or the Hidalgo County judge, who has multiple times tried to fight back against the governor in trying to open up a broaden up the opening standards. He's enacted several stay-at-home orders that the governor did not really want to happen, but he has taken more of a proactive approach to it than our current upper level elected officials.
Okay. Next question was, have you had discussions about how this quarantine has done little to flatten the curve? Of course, obviously outside of this interview, like with friends or family members or anybody?
Oh, definitely. I always try to have an open conversation with pretty much anybody that I meet with. I mean, currently within the pandemic, um, I always have an open dialogue with my family, and I do know that getting back to work, when we opened back up, everybody wanted to know about how each other was doing. My work family is literally that. We are a family, and we are very, very close. So we kept in touch. Actually, a lot of us kept in touch constantly, making sure that everybody had what they needed and we're okay. Because not only were we affected by the pandemic during this past year, but we were hit by a pretty significant hurricane. Um, so a lot of people needed a lot of help within our community. So I've I have my social media platforms. They're pretty small, but they're also places that I have discussions with, open discussions, as well as I do have a streaming platform that I like to engage with other people around the world as well, in uh, in discussions about COVID and how they feel about it.
Cool. That's cool. Next question. Tying back to work, since you've gone back and you've been working now for a bit. At work, are you scared of people ignoring COVID symptoms and coming into contact with you, especially at a place like the mall?
Yes, all the time. I think that's something that my fellow coworkers also take into consideration as well. Within our mindset, I believe most of us, probably 50% of us that work there at the mall, believe that um, it's better to be proactive than reactive. So we go into our workday assuming the worst, expecting the worst, and hoping for the best, though. So I know in my head, I constantly think like, you can't just assume that people are negative. You have to assume that there are false negatives, that they are asymptomatic, because that's the really scary part of this pandemic and this virus, that there are asymptomatic people out there that can still spread their infections to other people without even knowing it. So I just kind of go into my job every day assuming that there's going to be somebody that has it and that I'm going to come in contact with. So I have to make sure that I protect myself as best as I can.
And plus, since it's the mall,
Oh,
you
yeah.
don't just go to one store at the mall. How many times do you just go for one store and leave?
I do know that within our mall, there was a mall employee. I don't know them personally, but they did work within one of the retail stores. I was not in the store that they worked at, that they were employed with, but there was a person who worked at the mall who contracted COVID and ended up passing away from complications.
Sad part.
Granted, she was not elderly. She was not elderly, but she was probably around middle age. But yeah, she did contract it, and people believe most likely that there was no other place that she could have contracted it other than the mall.
Their job. Yes. Yes. Next question. A little bit more personal too. So, like I said in the preamble, you could choose to answer it or not answer it, and you could choose the limit as to what you say and whatever you give. That's up to you. Next question. Have you been mentally okay/good since the pandemic started?
No, not at all. Um, I'm I'm a person who has chronic anxiety. Um, I have chronic anxiety, I have chronic depression, and like I said, I do have um, my learning disability, ADHD. I do feel that normally I I didn't have a panic disorder, but um, my anxiety eventually did turn into one of a panic that mimicked and mirrored a panic disorder when COVID hit us. Actually, probably around right before it hit us in March. That's when I started panicking. And I did end up having to get treatment for a panic disorder because of the stress that was placed on my mental health. I mean, it's bad enough that, you know, we're struggling with a pandemic. Seniors within all seniors, high school seniors, college seniors, people who are on their last semester of graduating their graduate degree, you're stressed no matter what. If you're finishing something that you've worked so hard for so long, you're going to be stressed at the very end of it. So there's that normal senior stress that you have, and then we have a pandemic now on top of the senior stress. Most people, they're thinking, seniors are stressed, are college people my age graduating from college are worried about the job market. Will they ever get a job? The job market has been falling a lot within our generations. And we not only have to worry about that, about having an open job market after we graduate and getting a job, but now we have to worry about, okay, I'm getting introduced into a job market during a pandemic. My options were limited before, and now they're even more narrow now. So of course the stress has taken a mental toll on me. Fortunately, I was able to, you know, meet with my mental health care providers and able to be supported by both my general physician, my behavioral health physician, and I do know that there are services within the school that can be utilized for counseling services. I did use them once, and they did help me out a lot as far as giving me options and giving me room to breathe with letting me know about my accessibility options that I had. But yeah, it took a very large mental toll. But I do feel that not only did it hinder me, or not only did it give me that anxiety that I had, but it helped push me further into knowing what I wanted to do and what difference that I wanted to make after I graduated.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that answer and answering that. The next question. Having immunocompromised family during this time can be a worry. How have those around you who may be immunocompromised been dealing with the pandemic?
So I have, it is both my mother and both of us, I believe, me as well, but not as bad as my mother, that have compromised immune systems. My mother herself is currently on immunosuppressants because she does have an I'm sorry, what's the name of it? She has a autoimmune disorder. So she currently has to take immunosuppressants because her immune system does not function and overfunctions. It attacks her body when it doesn't need to be attacked, I guess. It attacks the wrong, it's defective in a sense. It attacks healthy cells instead of attacking those that need to be destroyed within the system. So because of that, she's currently on immunosuppressants, which means that she does not have an immune system. These medications are actually given to those who are receiving organ transplant receivers, because it limits the risk of infection. It helps the body try to receive something a little bit more easier, but she doesn't. It's a very strong medication that people are normally only given to in hospitals in controlled environments. So that way doctors are, everything's sterilized within the environment that they're staying in. And everybody knows that, okay, they need to make sure that they don't get infected or that they're extremely sterile. So that way, because they don't have an immune system, they can be killed very easily by smaller infections. So my mother gets sick very often because of that. So she has actually just she would normally visit with family at least 3 times a week, at least. At the most, she would probably see them every day. But since then, because she literally has a zero ways to fight off any type of infection or virus, she has been at home all day, every day. The very first time she left her household or our household since March, since spring break, has actually been probably 2 weeks ago. It was the first time she left. So she was in the house for over half a year, staying home, staying quarantined, staying safe because her health is very fragile. That's how she's been dealing with it. As far as my health concerns go, I've been trying to, I guess, limit everything that I can. I'm not as immunocompromised, but my immune system is fairly weaker than most. So I do try to take extreme precautions with vitamins and extra vitamins, actually, and several practices that I try to stay home as much as I can when I can.
Okay. Great answer. The next question. What were things you did to keep yourself busy during these times, specifically quarantine? And what may you be doing right now that you are getting ready to graduate in a time like this?
So I, excuse me, I tried gardening. I wasn't very good at it. Um, I tried a lot of different things to try to pass the time within our quarantine. The best way, or my favorite way to be able to kind of spend time and connect with my friends is through online gaming platforms. Being able to just kind of dive into a world that's not COVID ridden. Um, I also liked, to just do like little crafts. I got very into embroidery and actually making masks and donating masks, fabric face coverings. So I did that for a good while. I probably donated probably around 100 masks. But I guess just streaming completely on my gaming platform, just being able to connect. That's pretty much our only way to connect through technology. It's really helped me as an as an extrovert, kind of get back into the swing of things and help me understand that, this is our new normal. We got to get used to it. As far as what I would be doing without the pandemic, currently as a senior in my last semester, I would definitely be applying for jobs right now. At the moment, I am very, I guess, not discouraged, but hesitant and cautious to apply for jobs at the moment. I think if we didn't have a pandemic, my applications would be through the roof. I would be applying everywhere and anywhere I could. But right now, it's just so hard to be able to, not only am I having to research, the benefits and the cost benefit analysis of jobs and their positions, but I'm also having to research how are they dealing with the pandemic? What is their perspective on the pandemic? How much do they protect their employees as well? So it's searching up a job takes around half an hour at most, at most. within, like, I can't just apply wherever I want to now. I'm limited to that. So, yep.
Okay. Now these are gonna be the final 3 questions that really dive into COVID and how life is gonna be after COVID and what you think it'll be like. When do you think life will go back to pre-COVID-19 times?
I don't believe we ever will go back to normal. I don't think we will go back to being the same society as we were before. I think that it has really polarized our community, our society. I feel that the United States now, once being one of the most respected countries because of their powers, because of this pandemic and because of the response of our elected officials, I feel like we are now one of the most, I guess, one unrespected countries. And it's going to take a lot for us to be able to get back to the country that most of us thought we were. And maybe we never really were that great of a country, and we were just blind with patriotism, because obviously the United States and their citizens haven't been able to have enough empathy to be able to think of others and try to stop this COVID, this pandemic. And when you look at other countries, take France for example, although they had nationwide lockdowns, they're back to almost normal. But then again, it was not only the precautions that the state had to take or that the country had to take, but it's also individuals themselves understanding and realizing that it takes them. Nobody can force you to do anything. So you can pretty much do what you want, but in a sense, you have to think of others. And if you don't, then we're going to end up here. So there's countries that have citizens who are compassionate and empathetic with their other fellow citizens, and you have more individualist countries like the United States.
With that answer, you kind of answered the next question of how you think. What was that question? How do you think this nation will forever be changed after the events of COVID-19? And you kind of answered that with the first question of how life will go back to pre-COVID-19 times. But the last question, do you think the rest of the world will be changed after the events of COVID-19?
Yes. I honestly feel like this pandemic really highlighted the problems with an individualistic society. Although individualistic societies like the United States, although we're able to get higher positions, we're able to get farther in life than others who have families and people who quote unquote hold them back. You're only doing it for yourself and you're thinking of yourself. And I feel like the individualistic qualities within our nation was our downfall within this pandemic. You look at other countries who are more collectivists, like you see Japan, many countries in Asia, even there are just so many other collectivist societies that have been able to, because they have such a high stress and I guess such a high priority, hold others to a high priority. They were able to really understand what it took and do what it took to be able to stop the spread and lessen the spike and lessen the amount of cases that were within their region.
Okay. This is a great answer. Great answer. And it looks like those were all the questions that I had. Was there anything else you wanted to add to this oral history project, or any other COVID talk that you wanted to like mention, or anything else you wanted to share?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay, I'll just end it off right here. Again, my name is Andrew Garza. I was the interviewer. This is Ms. Amanda Garza, which in the pre-interview form that we filled out. This is my sister. She was a student, or she is still a senior student at UTRGV, and part-time worker during this time of this pandemic. And this is for the focus of a pandemic oral history project affiliated with the University of Texas at Austin, and this UTRGV, University of Texas of the Rio Grande Valley, and for my Mexican American literature class. And Amanda Garza, thank you for doing this interview with me.
Thank you for asking those questions. Really brought up discussions.
Thank you for taking time out of your day, out of your busy school day. I know it's a weekend, but thank you for taking the time for this.
Awesome. Glad to help.
This will be part of Latino history, and hopefully in the future, many more generations will watch this and be able to understand how Latino life was affected during this pandemic.
Yeah. It was affected
Alrighty.
pretty much, not only by the pandemic, but all the social injustices and social problems within the current world right now.